Department of Chemistry, St. George's College, Arvitra. I am Nikita Linson, alumnus and guest faculty of PG Department of Chemistry. Thank you all for joining us for today's inaugural webinar on Nanoscale Light Harvesters, Revolutionizing 21st Century Photovoltaics, presented by our alumnus, Dr. Suraj Soman, Scientist and Assistant Professor, NIIC, Thiruvananthapuram. Your active participation is important throughout the session. Please make sure that you mute your audio and video. Just tap the mic and video options once. Please make it red. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat box. We will bring them up during the presentation, and we will also have time for questions at the end. Also, please fill the feedback form. The link will be provided later. Before we commence, let's invoke the blessings of God Almighty with a prayer song. I invite Ms. Leah Anna Tom, 36 Chemistry, for the prayer song.
കാന്തി കാണുവാൻ കണ്ണിനാകി നല്ല വാക്കിൻ്റെ ശീലു ചൊല്ലുവാൻ നാടിനാകേണമേ സ്നേഹമാകുന്ന ഗീതമോ എൻ്റെ കാതിനിണയാകണേ സത്യമെന്നുള്ള ശീലമൂടിന്നെ ശാന്തിയറിയണമേ.
Thank you, Leah. I invite Dr. Tessimol Matthew, Associate Professor, for the welcome address.
Manager of the college, most respected, very devoted Dr. Augustine Palikaparambil, respected Principal Dr. Reggie Varghese Mekadan, Versar and Course Coordinator Reverend Father George Pullakalayil, our Chief Guest and Resource Person of the Day, dear Dr. Suraj Soman, respected Head of the Department, Srimati Shirley Matthew, my dear colleagues, teachers, students, and dear friends. A very good morning to all of you. The Postgraduate Department of Chemistry, St. George's College, Arvitra, is immensely proud to announce the Alumni Lecture Series, which has a unique character since the lecture series is structured in such a way that the prestigious alumni of the department are delivering lectures as resource person. The first talk in this series is delivering today by our beloved alumnus, Dr. Suraj Soman, Scientist and Assistant Professor, NIIST, Thiruvananthapuram. Our dear manager, Very Reverend Dr. Augustine Palikaparambil, is here to inaugurate the Alumni Lecture Series. St. George's College is profusely blessed to have such a rare combination of a scholastic leader, a literary researcher, an educational thinker, a philosopher, a spiritual father, and above all, a saintly human being as our manager in this era of challenges, problems, and pandemics. Our college is moving far ahead under his leadership. On behalf of all present here, I extend a very warm welcome to Very Reverend Dr. Augustine Palikaparambil to this Alumni Lecture Series. Our principal, Dr. Reggie Varghese Mekadan, is a source of energy behind all the academic and extracurricular activities of the college during these years. He is a true leader who knows how to lead an academic community, and how to bring glory and prosperity to the institution. I extend a warm welcome to our dear Principal, Dr. Reggie Varghese Mekadan, to this function in his absence. Our Bursar and course coordinator, Reverend Father George Pullagalai, is here with us to bless this august function. His unstinting service and never-ending enthusiasm is a source of energy of the college, especially in the infrastructure development of the college in a multifaceted manner. I cordially welcome Reverend Father George Pullagalai to this lecture. Dr. Suraj Soman is today's chief guest and resource person of the inaugural lecture of the Alumni Lecture Series. He is a gem of gems of the glorious history of the postgraduate department of chemistry, St. George's College, Arivithra. He had been a student of the undergraduate program of chemistry in our college during 2003-2006. As a student, Dr. Suraj was a constant motivator to his classmates and friends. He was tremendously energetic, hardworking, and systematic in his studies, both in classroom and in the laboratory. As a good organizer, he was the driving force behind the coordination of many department-level activities. Because of his hard work, he had won university first rank in BSc with 99.6%, the ever-time record in the history of our institution. For his tireless scientific works and inventions in his research career, he had won many national awards and honors and international fellowships. I take this opportunity to congratulate Dr. Suraj in the presence of all those who assembled here for the two prestigious awards he bagged this year, the CSIR Young Scientist Award and the Kerala State Youth Icon Award in Science. Personally, I had a very good relation with him and his parents. Today, I am singularly honored and I feel extremely happy to extend a very warm welcome to our beloved student and alumnus of this glorious institution, Dr. Suraj Soman, to his alma mater. Welcome, dear Suraj. Our head of the department and my dear friend, Srimati Sherlyn Matthew, is here with us. She is instrumental in organizing various activities in the department for the benefit of students. She is a true friend, down-to-earth personality, and a woman of high ideals. On behalf of all of you present here, I welcome Srimati Shirley Matthew. I am extremely happy to welcome my dear colleagues, Dr. Sibi Joseph and Dr. Gabriel George, and our alumnus and guest faculty member Nikita Linson, and all other faculty members to this lecture. I am extremely happy to extend a very warm welcome to all the former and present students of our department and all the participants to this inaugural lecture. Once again, I welcome all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss. It is an honor and privilege for me to welcome our dear manager, Very Reverend Dr. Agustin Palaka Parampil, for the inaugural address. Father, please. Father, please. I think there is connectivity issue. We will sort it now. Sorry for the interruption. May I now invite Reverend Father George Pulukalai, Bursar and Course Coordinator, for felicitation. Father, please.
Good morning. ഞാൻ പറയുന്നത് കേൾക്കാമോ?
Welcome, Father.
ഏറ്റവും ആദരണീയനായ കോളേജിന്റെ മാനേജർ ഡോക്ടർ അഗസ്റ്റിൻ പാലിക്കപ്പറമ്പിലച്ച, ബഹുമാന്യനായ കോളേജ് പ്രിൻസിപ്പൽ ഡോക്ടർ റെജി വർഗീസ് മേക്കാടൻ സാറേ, ഇന്നത്തെ വിശിഷ്ട അതിഥി റിസോഴ്സ് പേഴ്സൺ ഡോക്ടർ സൂരജ് സോമൻ, കെമിസ്ട്രി ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റ് മേധാവി ഷാർലി മിസ്, ആദരണീയരായ അധ്യാപകരെ, ഇതിൽ പങ്കെടുക്കുന്ന വിശിഷ്ട വ്യക്തികളെ, പ്രിയ വിദ്യാർത്ഥികളെ, കെമിസ്ട്രി ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റിന്റെ ആഭിമുഖ്യത്തിൽ നാനോസ്കെയിൽ ലൈറ്റ് ഹാർവെസ്റ്റേഴ്സ് റെവല്യൂഷനൈസിംഗ് 21st century Photovoltaics എന്ന ഒരു വെബിനാർ ഇവിടെ സംഘടിപ്പിക്കപ്പെടുകയാണല്ലോ. ഏറെ സന്തോഷമുണ്ട് കെമിസ്ട്രി ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റിന്റെ പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങളെക്കുറിച്ച്. കുട്ടികൾക്ക് ഉപകാരപ്രദമായ രീതിയിൽ അവരുടെ അക്കാദമികവും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ പാഠ്യേതരവുമായ വികസനത്തിന് ഉതകുന്ന രീതിയിലുള്ള പരിപാടികൾ കെമിസ്ട്രി ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റിൽ നിന്നും നിരന്തരം ഉണ്ടാവുന്നു എന്നുള്ളത് ഏറെ സന്തോഷമുള്ള കാര്യമാണ്. ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റിനെ പ്രത്യേകം അഭിനന്ദിക്കുന്നു, അവരുടെ എല്ലാ പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾക്കും ആശംസകൾ നേരുന്നു. ഇന്നത്തെ ഈ വെബിനാർ ഒരു വിജയകരമായി തീരട്ടെ, കുട്ടികൾക്ക് ഉപകാരപ്രദമായി തീരട്ടെ എന്ന് ആശംസിക്കുകയാണ്. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ കോളേജിലെ ഒരു അലുമിനി ഡോക്ടർ സൂരജ് സോമൻ ഇന്ന് ഇവിടെ സന്നിഹിതനാണ്. നമ്മുടെ കോളേജിൽ നിന്നും പഠിച്ച് ഉന്നതങ്ങളിലേക്ക് വളരുന്ന, വിജയങ്ങളിലേക്ക് എത്തി നിൽക്കുന്ന വ്യക്തികളെ ഒരു സീരീസ് ഓഫ് ലെക്ചേഴ്സിലൂടെ ഇവിടെ കൊണ്ടുവരുന്നു എന്നുള്ളത് സന്തോഷകരമായ കാര്യമാണ്. ഡോക്ടർ സൂരജ് സോമന്റെ സാന്നിധ്യത്തെ ഞങ്ങൾ വിലമതിക്കുന്നു. ഈ കോളേജുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട് ഇനിയും പ്രോഗ്രാമുകളിൽ പങ്കെടുക്കാൻ കഴിയട്ടെ എന്ന് ആഗ്രഹിക്കുകയാണ്. അദ്ദേഹത്തെ ഞങ്ങളുടെ ക്യാമ്പസിലേക്ക് ഓൺലൈൻ പ്ലാറ്റ്ഫോമിലൂടെ കോളേജിലേക്ക് പ്രത്യേകം സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ട് എൻ്റെ വാക്കുകൾ ഞാൻ നിർത്തുന്നു. ഏവർക്കും നന്മ നേരുന്നു. താങ്ക് യു.
Thank you, Father, for your kind words. Inauguration section will be later. It gives me immense pleasure to extend a very warm welcome on behalf of the chemistry family of St. George's College, Aruvitra, to their son, Dr. Suraj Soman. It is a proud moment for me to introduce Dr. Suraj. Dr. Suraj Soman is a scientist and assistant professor, Chemical Sciences and Technology Division, CSIR, National Institute for Interdisciplinary Science and Technology, Thiruvananthapuram. Dr. Suraj is an alumnus of our college. He has secured MG University first rank for BSc from our college and MG University first rank for MSc from St. Thomas College, Pala. Dr. Suraj obtained his PhD from Dublin City University, Ireland, followed by postdoctoral tenure at Michigan State University, USA. He has associated with few industries like Solar Print Ireland, JCAP, and Dow during his scientific career. He is a recipient of many prestigious awards, including CSIR Young Scientist Award 2020, Kerala State Youth Icon Award in Science 2020, R.L. Thakur Young Scientist Award 2019, Best Emerging Young Scientist Award 2019, Kerala State Young Scientist Award 2018, BRICS Young Scientist Award 2017, International Strategic Cooperation Award 2015, PST Inspire Faculty Award 2014, Indira Gandhi National Fellowship 2006, KVPY Fellowship 2004, etc. His areas of research includes dye-sensitized solar cells and perovskite solar cells. So far, he has 9 research students and 32 publications. With a long list of his achievements and glory, I'm extremely happy to invite Dr. Suraj Soman for his presentation. Suraj sir, please.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, a very good morning to one and all. First of all, I should thank the organizers, particularly the Department of Chemistry, St. George College, Arivitra, the respected principal, manager, course coordinator for the George Pullakala, and all for the invitation and for the very kind words of introduction. To me, it's like a homecoming. I don't feel it different. എന്താ പറയുക ഏറ്റവും സന്തോഷമുള്ള ഒരു ദിവസമാണ് ഇന്ന്. കാരണം ബാക്കി ഏത് അവാർഡ് കിട്ടുന്നതിനേക്കാളും ഏറ്റവും സന്തോഷം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് നമ്മൾ പഠിച്ച കോളേജിൽ the place from where I started my entire research career or my scientific journey. So when you are invited to give a presentation over there, that is actually one of the greatest moment in your life. So I consider it as a privilege to share some of the scientific journey that I had undertaken with all of you, with my junior students over there today. So for that, first of all, I extend my sincere thanks to the college for setting up such a platform, even during this hard times, pandemic times, and also the Department of Chemistry, particularly the HOD Sherlimis, Tessimis, Sibisar, and all. So I will start with the presentation, like without wasting much time, and then we can have some discussions and things at the end of the talk. So I will share my slide, and then we will move on. Is the slide visible now?
No, sir. Yes, sir. It's visible.
It's visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I will put it in presentation mode. Is it visible in presentation mode? Is it in presentation mode now?
Yes, sir. It's okay. It's okay.
Okay, then we will start. So first we will speak a bit of the science, and then we'll have the other discussions after the presentation. So one more time, thank you for the department for this great invitation. And today my talk is entitled as Nanoscale Light Harvesters, Revolutionizing the 21st Century Photovoltaics. So this is actually related to the area of research currently we are pursuing in our laboratory. So I am basically from CSIR, so I put the talk separated into different sections. So one is actually I will start with my institution, like what this whole CSIR is about and what we are doing. Then energy is actually the topic that right now I am speaking on one part of the energy sector. So I will be giving a brief description on those things, photovoltaics, and the core topic of today's talk, which is the dye cells. Then some related activities in our lab, how we are transforming the science to the technology and things like that. So I am basically from CSIR. So CSIR, as many of you are aware, like when you first hear about CSIR, the first thing that comes in our mind is the CSIR JRF examination. So that is being conducted by CSIR. But above all, this is actually one of the prime research institution in our country, and we can say it as the national lab. So we have around 37 national labs in different sectors of biological science, chemical science, engineering science, physical science, information science, in working at various interfaces all across the country. And I am actually from the lab which is on the southernmost tip of our country in Thiruvananthapuram, which is called the National Institute for Interdisciplinary Science and Technology. So as the name suggests, we work at the interface of various science subjects, science and engineering subjects, in a way to materialize certain new discoveries and technologies that at some point of time will be adopted to the community so that the people will get benefit out from it. So this is our campus. It's a very beautiful campus. So anytime if you are around in Thiruvananthapuram after this pandemic time, you are more than welcome to visit the campus. You can just give me a ring and you can come over here and you can see the facilities and the research infrastructure that is available with our institute. So my lab is actually located somewhere over here in this top picture. So that is where like I am located. So we work a lot on energy in our institute, and particularly on the energy generation sector. That is the solar cells basically converting the sunlight to electricity. Then on the storage part, so once you are having the energy that you need to store it in the proper way. So you work with batteries, supercapacitors, and those kind of storage technologies. And then once you have the electricity or the energy which is being produced from a renewable source, you don't want to waste it just by using it in incandescent bulbs or like those technologies where the heat production is more. So efficient conversion devices like the organic light emitting diodes, phosphorescent materials, and those kind of results are also there. Then the conservation part where we work on electrochromic devices and also formulating the energy policies for the future. So in a nutshell, what we can say is that we work with a lot of materials tailored for performance and stability to the scalable production process, and finally moving into the product integration level. So why we do work on these kind of sectors means as scientists, like what is the rationale behind choosing these sectors? So there are many reasons. One thing is that when you look into the challenges ahead of us, like now we have new challenges, isn't it? Like since the pandemic is there, we need new vaccinations, we need to have new kinds of PPE kits, like all these kind of new things are ahead of us. But on a general platform, there are many sectors, it's not only in the health sector, there are many sectors where we want to invest our effort and our energy in a way to come up with solutions for the problems that exist for the humankind in general. So one of the areas is the renewable energy, because energy is something, as we all know, we can't live even a day without any of these energies, like particularly the electricity and all. We can't imagine a day if the complete electricity grid is out from working. So because our mobile phones, our laptops, our day-to-day activities are all interlinked to it. And we all depend on certain energy sources at some point of time will get finished. So we need to have some new kinds of energy technologies which can have a sustainable existence. Then the processes should be efficient, the kind of things should be more green, it shouldn't cause damage to the environment. Healthcare sector, there are a lot of requirements are there, technologies need to come up, and all these things needs to have a interdisciplinary kind of an approach. And UN had come up with the Sustainable Development Goals, 17 are there. Out of that, goal number 7 is actually to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. So this is basically the rationale behind most of the research that I am undertaking in my laboratory, where we are trying to come up with certain new renewable energy sources or to make the energy more accessible to the mankind or more approachable for the mankind. So when we look at the energy sector, the first thing that comes into our mind is this big three, which are the coal, oil, and the gas. So these we call as the fossil fuels. Most of you may be knowing. So these comes as billions of years of process that happens in our earth, where the plantations get into the soil and finally it is getting converted into this kind of fuel resources which we dig out or we extract, and we use it for various like purposes, like for producing electricity, for making polymers or whatever it is. So different things are there. So it is great, like we can get energy from this, but the issue is that one thing is these will not last for longer time, because fossil fuels are fuels that actually exist for maybe another 100 or 200 years time, and then it takes another billion years to get it replaced. with another set of fuel producing fossil resources. So that is one major thing. Second, and another problem is burning causes lots of pollution, and that we all know, and that creates global warming, and that actually affects the whole earth. And up to a few years back, like maybe 10 or 15 years back, we were not that much worried, particularly in this part of the world and this part of the country. We were not directly exposed to these kind of problems. But these days, as you know, like we are coming across this floods almost every year, and the nature is changing. So we can't just sit back like that. So ultimately, the kind of day-to-day activities that we are doing, maybe like it's running a laptop or a mobile phone or running our vehicles and all, is causing a ultimate damage to the environment. And that actually creates a lot of issues like that we see in our day-to-day lives. And so as human beings, what we need to do is that we need to move to more sustainable resources. And there we need to move out from the fossil fuels, and we need to think about renewable energy. So renewable energy, there are different forms of renewable energy. One is you can have the tide or ocean waves, you can have wind, hydroelectric, geothermal, biomass. Hydroelectric is something that we all are familiar with because we have this Hydel project in Idiki, where we get almost most of the power from for our day-to-day needs, we believe, from this Idiki project. But unfortunately, only around 20 to 30% of our energy needs are met from this hydroelectric project, and the rest actually we are getting from various other resources. I'm not going deeper into it, but still, in a general note, we can say that currently, globally, we use around like 14 terawatts, and in another maybe 20 to 30 years time, we need to add another 16 terawatt. And I had kept a few digits here. For the tide around 2 terawatt, for wind around 2 to 4 terawatt. These numbers indicates that, for example, if you are putting the windmills all around the globe in wherever places you can access the wind, there the maximum power you can extract is around like 2 to 4 terawatt. If you are taking all the vegetation across the globe and if you are converting that into fuels, then you can get around 5 to 7 terawatts that we can get from this biomass. So we can't do it, isn't it? Like, because we, if we take the cultivation lands and if we are using our food for producing the fuels, that's like the survival will become a question there. So what is the best source there? Even if we add all these digits and numbers, we are not anywhere close to what is needed from for the requirement of the humankind, maybe for another that is required in another like 20, 30 years time. So there we have one ultimate solution, which is the sun. The sun is shining there, and how best we can harness the sunlight and convert that into some forms of energy which can be stored and which can be used. And there, with some calculation, it is being said that if you can harness the sunlight that is falling on Earth's surface in 1 hour, that is actually enough in a way to sustain all our energy needs, whatever be the things, for another 1 more year. So 1 day of energy, if we can harness it in the right way, that is enough for sustaining our requirements for 1 year. So that is a big thing. So what restricts it? If something like that is there, what limits us in doing it? We need right technologies. So one way to do it is actually the solar cells, where the photovoltaic effect is taken into the picture, and we take the sunlight and the excitons are created, electrons holes are created, and that actually is being extracted in the right way, and we produce electricity, and that we use for various purposes. So that is actually what we see as solar cells. Maybe like you will be seeing this kind of like blue tinted solar panels on top of the buildings like homes, institutes, other places and all. So we'll just quickly look into a brief history on from where all this started. You all might have heard about the photovoltaic effect and the French scientist Alexandre Edmond Becquerel. So it all started, the journey of the solar cells or the journey of conversion of light into electricity started way back, almost like 200 years back in 1839, when this gentleman discovered the photovoltaic effect. And then also the solar cell was not made. Later in 1870s, Willoughby Smith, Adams and Day, they come up with the photoconductivity measurements and like things like that. But still the solar cells was not made there. So these were the basic science that ultimately contributed to the discovery of the solar cells. So the first solar cell was done by Charles Fritz back in New York in the US in 1884, where he showcased some of this cells where he coated a selenium with a thin layer of gold, and where he had shown some current and voltage, and the power conversion efficiency was like around like 1%. And this was actually the first display of the proof of concept, showcasing that a scientific science can be converted to some kind of a technology part where you take the light and you can have a flow of the electrons over there. But still, it was not a working prototype or anything like that. This was just a proof of concept. Again, you have to wait for another 50 years, where way back in 1954 in Bell Labs in USA, these three gentlemen, Pearson, Chapin, and Fuller, they discovered the first working solar cell, the PN junction solar cell, where you put a p-type semiconductor and a n-type semiconductor together, and you are having some depletion region, and when sun is shining, when the photons are incident, and if the energy is above the excitonic binding, then you get the separation of electrons and holes, and that you can collect as the flow of electrons being the current, and you can store it somewhere and use it. So this was actually the first very display of the real working prototype of the solar cell. So that you have to see, like 1800s, the photovoltaic effect was discovered, but there was no real solar cell. You need to wait for another 100 years down the line in a way to realize the first solar cell. So 1839, Becquerel started the effect, and then the whole way 100 years down the line, the 1954, the first working solar cell was made, and 58 it was used firstly in the satellite. But still, it was not being accessible to the common man. Again, in 1970s, this gentleman here, Elliot Berman, who was the chairman and founder of the Solar Power Corporation in the US, so he made some modifications to the process in which you can get the silicon, and that actually made it more accessible, or like more cost effective, where further like it's being used a lot pretty much in satellites and earthbound applications and things like that. So when we look into the solar technology, so the take home message from the last few slides is that when we work on science, something that you need to keep in mind, that you can't get something, a technology out in a day or two. You work on certain scientific discoveries, and right now you may be moving some materials ahead of time, where you will be making some discoveries, and those scientific discoveries will come as technology where it becomes accessible to the common man, maybe 50 years or maybe 100 years or maybe 150 years down the line. So you can't judge a science just by looking at the technological aspects. So there are a lot of efforts that are put into the scientific discoveries and the technologies that we see around these days. So coming back to the solar cells, it is classified into 3 different generations: the first generation, second generation, and third generation. So the first generation solar technology is what I mentioned before as the PN junction solar cells that we normally see around. That is actually the market leading technology, which involves the monocrystalline silicon, polycrystalline silicon, and all. Then coming to the second generation, so why people or the scientists started to think about a second generation? Because first generation involves a silicon semiconductor, isn't it? So silicon is a indirect bandgap semiconductor. So you, in a way to have the more photons being absorbed by the semiconductor matrix, you need to have a more thicker layer there. So normally it is between 300 to 350 micrometer thick silicon is being used. So it has its own disadvantages. One thing is that when you use this much thick silicon, then it becomes more brittle. So the chance of breaking is much higher there. Second thing, the amount of light absorption, if you want to achieve 100%, means you need to make it more thicker. Then scientists started to think, like, can we get something where like you can reduce the amount of material so that it becomes more cost effective, and additionally it gives the flexibility in a way to deposit it into flexible substrates like metal, plastics, and so there they thought about coming up with the direct bandgap semiconductor. So all of you know about the direct bandgap and indirect bandgap semiconductor. So silicon is an indirect bandgap semiconductor, but later for the second generation, people use the direct bandgap semiconductor like gallium arsenide, cadmium telluride, copper indium gallium selenide. So here the advantages is that, like, when you are having the direct bandgap semiconductor, your absorption coefficient is much higher with a lower thick material. So with 1 to 2 micrometer thick material, you can get even better absorption than silicon there. And that gives you the flexibility also in a way to deposit it on flexible substrate. So you can have the panels which are like pretty much like can be integrated to different kind of substrates and all. But still, the price was much higher for the first and second generation. And that necessitated or that triggered the development into the third generation photovoltaic technologies, where we are moving more close to the nature, and something from locally available materials can we make a solar cells which are more accessible or which can be cost effective for the mass scale production. And that actually is the third generation technologies that we also work, like dye-sensitized solar cells, perovskite solar cells, quantum dot solar cells, and things like that. So this chart actually gives a glimpse into the efficiency. So what you see here in the purple color as the highest efficient solar cells, which are the multi-junction silicon solar cell, where you have like multiple panels which are kept one on top of the other, and along with that you can have like some lens or those kind of concentrators which are there. Then comes the crystalline silicon solar cells, which are in the blue. Then comes the thin film, the second generation, and then the emerging technologies which are there. So from the chart it is quite clear that when you go to the emerging technologies from the market leading technologies, the efficiencies are less. But that's what, like initially I mentioned, what you see here with 27 or 30% efficient solar cells are way back discovered 200 years back, like 150 years back. But those new generation technologies are the technologies that are being discovered in the last 2 or 3 decades, like back in 80s or 90s, late 90s and all. So still a lot need to be done in a way to make it mature enough to penetrate into the market and get it into the hands of the people. Then why silicon? Like the solar cells that you see around, like I mentioned, the market leading PN junction silicon solar cell. How you get it? Basically you are taking the sand. And from the sand, with a lot of chemical process, you make the crystalline silicon, and from there you make the ingots, and then you cut it in the wafers and you make the solar cell. So even though we all say make in India, it's quite unfortunate that in India we don't have this kind of a fabrication that is being taken up from the way back from the sand. So what all these people are doing, whether it's Adani or Tata or Reliance, what they are doing is that they get this kind of wafers, they import these wafers from different places, and then they actually do the rest of the processing, and they do the assembling, either serial or parallel, in a way to make the panel. And why we miss the bus for this particular thing is that it need to be done like back in 60s or 70s, and now the process is very tedious, because you need to have, if you want to have a highly performing silicon solar cell, you need the silicon crystal to be highly pure. It should be 99 point, like you need to write 99. So that much pure silicon you need to have. So from where you are getting it? From the sand, you are making this much pure silicon. So the process involves a lot of chemical conformation changes are being added into it, and that actually makes it very much pricey. So there are companies which are there in China, Malaysia and all, where the large scale manufacturing is there. So they can actually supply these things at a much more cheaper rate. So there is no point in starting like our own kind of manufacturing from the scratch in India, which will not be cost effective. That is the reason why many of these companies actually import the wafers, and from there they start their manufacturing, because the motive is not indigenization. The motive is actually to make more money. It's a business. So coming to the solar cell, even though the silicon is the most used technology and the thing that we see around a lot, silicon is not the highest efficient solar cell. One of the world's highest efficient solar cell is actually the gallium arsenide direct bandgap semiconductor solar cell, and this has an efficiency somewhere between 28 to 29%. But unfortunately, even though the efficiencies are very high, at the same time the process involves very tedious methods, and it uses the metals which are highly priced. So the cost of the solar cell is very high, and it is not affordable to the common man. So that is where like these solar cells are used by our NASA, our ISRO and those kind of people, where the price is not a matter of fact a point of issue, and the application is more important. So those kind of applications, like you use these kind of solar cells. So coming back to the solar cells, like in 1958, this solar cells were made, the silicon photovoltaics were really made, and right now in 2020, it's pretty much penetrated into our daily lives. You can see it around, like even in the most difficult situations like in Himalayas or wherever be the places. But as a scientist, when I look into this, means I feel great that, okay, great technology is being developed in the last like 200 years time. But more or less, when you look at the picture, you can see that as far as the aesthetic part is concerned, it looks more or less the same. Even the first solar cell or the solar cell right now, what we are currently being used. So here arises one question. So these pictures that you see here with some colorful things are not just glasses. So these are some solar cells which are made in different colors and which has the aesthetic beauty which can be integrated as facade materials. So instead of having a solar cell which is opaque, which is not transparent, can we imagine to have these kind of solar cells which are semi-transparent or transparent, which can be made into different colors and which can be integrated to different parts of our buildings, like the glass facades or to our other structures and things like that. Another important issue that right now we are addressing, like we all are living in the industry 4.0 or the fourth industrial revolution, where we use a lot of gadgets. And some of the things that we see around these days are like, whether it's a mobile phone or a laptop, we come across issues with power failures, isn't it? Power failures in the sense means our battery running low. Because the mobile phones, even though the purpose of the mobile phone is actually to have a communication between two people, we use it for now a lot of downloading, uploading, watching videos, music and things like that. And same with the laptop. So your power is getting like finished like anything for these kind of gadgets. So can we imagine to have a thin foil like what you see in market, like an aluminum foil or like a paper substrate, which actually can be easily sticked onto your gadgets, and that actually takes any kind of light, whether it is an indoor light, whether it is an outdoor light, takes any kind of light and converts that into some form of a useful power. So can we imagine something like that? And that actually triggered the research into the third generation photovoltaic technology called the dye-sensitized solar cells, or in short we call it as dye cells, which takes the principles from the nature. As we all know, one of the most beautiful technology or the efficient technology that is available in the nature is the photosynthesis. We all see the green plants taking the sunlight and converting that, fixing the carbon dioxide and getting carbohydrates, and oxygen is coming out and we all breathe it. So how can we mimic a photosynthesis mechanism, which is actually one of the most beautiful electron transfer mechanism available in the nature, into a device? And that actually triggered into the development of this photovoltaic technology called dye-sensitized solar cells, where we use certain dye molecules as the light absorption component there, similar to what you see in chlorophyll. Then there is a semiconductor metal oxide, which does the purpose same as the charge transfer protein. And then there is an electrolyte which is used for the whole transfer, like the proton pump that is there in the photosynthesis. So the nature-inspired photovoltaics, we say it as dye-sensitized solar cells. It has a lot of advantages. One thing is that you can have the choice of colors, like you can make it in any color you want, whether it's red, blue, green, whatever be the color you say, we can make it by changing the dye molecules. It is semi-transparent, so which gives it the purpose of using it as a building material without spending extra space. That is actually something that need to be considered in a kind of like agglomerations that comes up with the cities and all, where the people are living in a very congested way. Then it can be made into different shapes and sizes, and it can be done with the printable process that gives you the flexibility in a way to make more cheaper solar cells. But the real paradigm shift that happened in this particular technology is in the last 2-3 years time, which was a realization that these solar cells are best suited to work in indoor light. So when I started my talk, like I mentioned about the PN junction solar cell, the first generation silicon and second generation thin film solar cells. And those solar cells require the direct sunlight. You need to keep it in sunlight in a way to get the electron out from the matrix. But this is actually a different kind of solar cell where you don't need to have direct light. You can actually generate the power even from indoor lights. That means even from the CFL light, LED light, and those kind of diffused light, even the sunlight, the diffused sunlight that gets into our homes. So from that, you can actually generate the power. And this actually is a really big breakthrough, where the efficiencies changed from like 2% way back 10 years back in 2009 all the way up to 34%. And what really resulted in this new development is not the conventional dye-sensitized solar cell. So the normal solar cell, conventional dye cells, uses a dye, a semiconductor, and an electrolyte between two conductive glass plates. And now you are having some newly developed dyes which are more suitable for the indoor light harvesting. You are having some new electrolytes, some modified materials, and innovative device engineering, which are purposefully tuned in a way targeting the final end user requirement. So that is very critical there. So the three major components that comes into this dye cells, as I mentioned, are the dye, the semiconductor, and the electrolyte. So dye, normally, that is where the chemistry, the major chemistry part comes into the picture. Conventionally, 30 years back, when it was first discovered, people used the metal complex sensitizers, like the ruthenium-based metal complex sensitizer, where you are having the ruthenium metal along with certain polypyridyl ligands, which are coordination metal complexes. And this has pretty much a decent absorption in the visible region, and that takes the light, and it was able to get excited and convert certain portion of it to the electricity and all. Then comes the semiconductor part. So you cannot put a dye or an organic molecule or an inorganic metal complex just onto a glass substrate. So there you need to have a place where it can sit. So that is the purpose of the semiconductor. And normally there are a lot of semiconductors, and one of the best used ones are the titanium dioxide. So the advantage of the titanium dioxide is its surface area, its robustness, so that you can have maximum number of this light absorbing units or the dyes which can sit onto its semiconductor network. Then you have an electrolyte. So electrolyte normally contains two species. One is actually an oxidized species and a reduced species. So once the dye get excited, then you need to fill the electrons to the ground state of the dye. So that is being done with this electrolyte system. So what happens when the sun shines on this kind of a device? So that is actually the schematic that shows here. So here you are having the semiconductor. So for the semiconductor, you have a valence band and a conduction band. Then you are having the sensitizer. For the sensitizer, you have the HOMO and LUMO. So you might be knowing the highest occupied molecular orbital and the lowest unoccupied molecular orbital. And then you have the redox species here, where you have a oxidized and reduced species. So you have a Nernst potential or a redox potential for it. So when the sun shines, when your band gap of your dye is in such a way that it can actually able to take the sunlight, then the electron gets excited from the ground state of the dye to the excited state of the dye. And if your excited state of the dye is placed in such a way that it is above the potential of your semiconductor conduction band, then you can actually have an injection of the electron from the excited state of the sensitizer to the semiconductor. So once that is being injected, then there is a diffusion process that happens where like there is hopping of electrons through this semiconductor matrix, and that gets collected in your photoanode. And once you excite the electron, there is a hole which is there in the ground state of the dye. So you need to actually replace that hole. Then only the forward electron transfer process will happen. So that is being done by the reduced species which is present in the electrolyte. So what happens is that at the moment that you generate the hole there in the ground state of the dye with the photo excitation, the electron or the reduced species in the electrolyte contributes an electron to the ground state of the dye. And once you contribute an electron, automatically it will become oxidized. And that actually moves to the counter electrode, and that takes the electron which comes to the circle. So that's how the process goes on. So this is actually the forward electron transfer process that happens in a dye-sensitized solar cell. It's very beautiful. It's very, like I only mentioned the forward electron transfer process here, and the current that you generate from this particular device is actually more or less related to directly to the dye that you are having. So if you are having a dye which is having a higher light absorption properties, then you can actually have more current over there. and generally the voltage that you gain from this device is the difference between your Fermi voltage and the redox potential. So if you can tune your Fermi voltage or conduction band, or if you can tune your redox potential, you can gain more voltage in general. So these are actually in general, but there are a lot of other things that you need to account. Even though it looks simple, the moment you put an electron onto your semiconductor, it is not necessary that the electron should get collected here, because you are having a hole there in the ground state of the die, and you are having a hole there in the electrolyte. So the electron which is being injected to the semiconductor, it will recombine with the holes which is present in the electrolyte, and also it can recombine with the hole which is present in the ground state of the die. So these are actually the performance limiting process which are there in this particular system. And how best you address it, you will be able to get the maximum power out from the entire system. So this is actually the very beauty of this entire device itself, because you can see there are different interface there. One is actually a solid, the semiconductor is a solid material there, die is a solid, electrolyte is a liquid. So you have solid interface there, you have solid liquid interfaces there, and a lot of electron transfer process that happens in all these interfaces. So it's very beautiful in a way to target different process that happens in this device and to understand it in a more better way. So this is actually, when you look into the anatomy, so this is actually how a die cell is looking like. So you have a photoanode. So you need to have conductive substrates. Normal glass are not conductive substrates. So you put like either indium tin oxide or fluorine tin oxide on top of your normal glass, and then it becomes a conductive glass, and that is being used for the device fabrication. So that is actually the substrates that are being used, and in between that you have this die coated semiconductor, then you have a spacer, and then you put it together and you fill some electrolyte, and that's how the fabrication comes up. So this is how we prepare this kind of solar cells in the lab level. So you first take the conductive glasses, you cut it into different pieces based on the kind of sizes that you require, and then you do a couple of pre-treatments are there. Then you coat your semiconductor, the titanium dioxide, using various techniques. You can do either doctor blading, screen printing, those kind of process. And normally this kind of semiconductor that is made with certain binders in a way to undertake this coating, otherwise it will not stick to the glass surface. So later you need to remove these binders. For that you need to heat it up. You remove the binders, and once you are done with it, then you can actually soak it in the dye solution. So once you soak it in the dye solution, after a certain amount of the time, once you take it out, you can see that the electrodes, initially like what you see here in the white, are getting colored. That means the dye is being adsorbed onto your semiconductor. So once that is done, then you take the counter electrode part. So there also you cut the glass, you put some holes, then you put an catalyst there. Normally we put platinum as the catalyst. And finally, when it comes to assembly, you take your anode, which is a die-coated TiO2 placed on the FTO substrate. Then you take the cathode where you have some holes and a platinum-coated catalyst is there. And then you put a spacer, a polymer gasket, and you assemble these two devices together. And then you put the electrolyte, and finally you seal it. So this is the entire process that is done in a way to make the solar cell. So the relevance here is that initially the first generation and second generation solar cell, we can't ever dream of doing such a kind of a thing in a laboratory, because that needs laborious process and heavy machineries there. But this is a solar technology which can be done even in our like backyard or like in any place wherever we want. So once you are having this kind of a finished device, the second part is actually to do the characterization in the right way. So the first part is actually you do the JV measurements where you find the efficiency. So the efficiency of the solar cell is the product of your short circuit current density, your open circuit potential, and there is a factor called the diode quality factor, or we say it as fill factor, divided by the input power. That will give the efficiency. So if you are having a higher voltage or a higher current, you can directly increase the power conversion efficiency or the net efficiency of the solar cell. So that is what the primary factor is there in a way to classify the solar cells. Then comes the incident photon to current conversion efficiency. We say it as IPCE measurement. So what it does is that it shines the light, in different wavelength region from the whole visible, like let's say 300 to 900 nanometer. And for each photon which is incident on your solar cell, how many electrons are ejected out as a function of the wavelength, that you can actually get from your action spectra, or we say it as the incident photon to current conversion efficiency spectrum. And this can be integrated in a way to recalculate your current density, so that you can cross verify whether there is any discrepancy is there in between the results that you get from these particular things. So coming to the research part, there is a very huge development in the last 2-3 years time in this sector, and the major relevance is from the indoor light harvesting. So these are a few representative examples that you can also like later check it up. So one is actually in 2017. This was actually the breakthrough paper where the first time the scientific community realized that this particular solar cell, or the dye sensitized solar cell, is working far better than the first and second generation, or the world's best efficient solar cell. As I mentioned, the gallium arsenide, which gives an efficiency of around like 21% in a indoor condition, somewhere around 1000 lux. At the same condition, the dye cells was giving around 28%. And here you have to imagine something like gallium arsenide, as I mentioned, is used in ISRO or like in space application, because it is very costly and it uses materials which are scarce. But at the same time, you have another technology where you can actually have local manufacturing, where you make the solar cells with the locally available materials like organic molecules, semiconductor that you normally see in toothpaste, and which outperforms this highly costly first or second generation solar cells. And right now, the scientific community stands at an efficiency of around like 34% right now, with a proper mixing of different dyes and new generation electrolytes and all. So now we will move into the application part. Means I mentioned there is something called this kind of a technology which is very good in harvesting all kinds of light, and where you will use it. So one aspect is actually the low power application or the indoor application. So here, one thing I want to mention you is, most of you might have heard about this term called IoT, Internet of Things. So IoT is something which is actually a major part, or the major thrust area that is being investigated in the current scenario in many aspects, and particularly in the industry 4.0. We know, like in 1800s, we started with the mechanization, the first industrial revolution. Then in the 1700s and in 1800s, we come up with the electricity, which was the second industrial revolution. And in the last 100 years, like we had the introduction of the computers and those kind of electronic gadgets, which was the third industrial revolution. And we stand at the fourth industrial revolution in the 21st century, where we are trying to make our material world into living things. So how we do it means, as human beings, we have the sense organs, right? We have the eyes to see, we have the nose to smell, we have the ears to hear. In the same way, if you want to make the material world to communicate between each other, whether it will be in an industry sector, like in a big power plant, you want all the pipelines or the kind of the industry sector things which are there, if you want them to communicate between each other, we need to give them some sense organs, isn't it? Even for a room, if we want to make a smart room or a smart classroom, you want to have a communication between different material worlds there. And this is done with a lot of sensors. So these are actually the sense organs in the material world. And right now, these are powered with the batteries. And it is predicted that there will be around 50 to 60 billion of these sensors that is right now in 2020 even being placed all across the world. And if you are actually replacing the batteries, it's a huge carbon footprint that is being created. And you can't use conventional solar cells like the silicon market leading technology that you see around, or the highly costly thin film direct band gap semiconductor incorporated into these kind of applications. So that is where our niche area of this dye cells, where you have the flexibility to integrate it into any kind of substrates, and you can have local manufacturing possible, and you are having ultimately the maximum efficiency of around like 30-35% that is being generated even from the artificial or the indoor lights, that opens up a new, totally new era in the light harvesting sector itself. And this is a breakthrough. And second part actually is the aesthetic part, where you can have these kind of colored solar cells, which gives you the potential in a way to integrate it into facades and those kind of things. And here I want to just mention one company from Sweden called St.George, which recently had a huge investment of around like 10 million US dollar almost a few months back. And you may many of you may be knowing this kind of Bluetooth speakers or like Bluetooth headphones, we can say. And this is actually one from JBL. And what they are right now doing is that they are trying to integrate this kind of like solar cells or the dye sensitized or the mesoscopic solar cells into these kind of Bluetooth devices, so that you don't need to just rely on our grid or like charging it. Once you have it integrated, and if it doesn't compromise with your aesthetic, you have some gadget or your day-to-day electronic gadgets. Once you integrate these kind of solar cells, then it can get at the end of the day to be self-powered. And the second sector of application, as I mentioned, is the facade application. This has a big relevance. Even if you think from our Kerala state, means when we take our state, out of our total land area, only 1% of the total land area is the barren land. And for your first generation or the second generation silicon or thin film solar technologies, you need to have a land in a way to put the solar panels. Either it will be on the top of the buildings, or you need to have some sort of a land. We don't have any land area. So the second option is the buildings. So when we take the buildings in the new era of building making, you have a lot of other things that need to be incorporated into the building, like the high vacuum system, the air conditioning and things like that. So the top of the building more or less is too much congested, and you will not get space in a way to integrate the solar panels. So imagine then, where is the space? The space is actually around you. It is there in the windows or in the other outskirts of the building. But unfortunately, our conventional solar cells, if it need to generate the power, you need to have the direct sunlight which is being hitting on the solar cells. You can't have it like it will not work in an indirect light or in a diffused light. And it is completely opaque. So you can't replace your current windows with these kind of solar cells. So that is where the relevance of this technology comes into the picture, where you can have these kind of transparent solar cells. And I will quickly show you a video which shows you like these are certain recent developments that happen with this technology, where the real installation has been done. So this is a 20 kilowatt installation in a science building in Austria, in Europe, where they have this beautiful semi-transparent solar cells which are integrated to the building. So it serves as a extra building material. So it becomes a part of your building material. So additionally to the aesthetics and to the functionality that it gives, it produces power also. So that gives an added advantage there. This is actually another thing, which is a noise barrier. So in bigger highways and all, you can have this kind of noise barrier which prevents the noise in getting to the other side. Along with that, you can generate the power. Also, you can have it in like different other sectors, like you can have it in parking lots where you can charge this e-vehicles and things like that. You can have it in your balconies, which is not compromising the aesthetic, in bigger skyscrapers there, where like without compromising like the aesthetic, you can have it. Even in like the bus stops, you can have like these kind of smart bus stops and things like that. So here actually I am switching over. So I hope like you got a glimpse into the energy sector, the need to work on renewables, the various photovoltaics there, and the area that we are focusing on. So now I want to show you how I went into this particular thing. So I started my PhD back in 2008 in Dublin City University, and as a grad student, you have to attend coursework, like the first 1-2 year time you have to attend coursework. So as part of that, I went for a summer school there in a different university, and there actually another scientist from EPFL in Switzerland, he came and he mentioned about this kind of dye sensitized solar cells, and there was another company which also showcased certain products with it. So I got so much excited with it. Means I was so happy seeing this new photovoltaic technology. And later, after this 1 week class and all, I came back and I told my PhD boss that, look, his name was Han. So look, Han, I was so much moved by this particular science, and I want to work on this problem. But unfortunately, his expression was like full of questions. Like, the thing is that I was supposed to work on a particular problem. I was taken as a grad student to work on a problem to split the water and to get the hydrogen and molecular photocatalysis. That was a problem given to me, and he has to make sure that there will be enough results in 2 to 3 years time, so that our funding will not be getting disrupted. So that is the main part there. And now, as a PhD boss, now I understand that's the situation, that in what situation he mentioned that to me. But later it was there in the back of my mind. So during my PhD time, I never get a chance or an opportunity to work on this problem. But later, when I went for my postdoc in Michigan, in some or other way, like, I got a little bit introduced into this field of dye-sensitized solar cells. But later, in 2014, I started my independent research career back here in Thiruvananthapuram at NIIST, and there actually I came back with a clear plan. Means this was there in my mind. I want to work on this particular sector. But there, the problem is that you look like it's when you see these kind of solar cells and things, it's very fancy, it's very fascinating, and it's very fancy. But working on these sectors as a scientist or as a young researcher is very tough, because you need to find your own space or your own place where you will be recognized, because a lot of things, people around the globe are working on it. So you need to have your own kind of a different sector inside this area. So there, actually, one thing that I had done is actually a development of an interdisciplinary, truly interdisciplinary team, and a interdisciplinary approach where we work at the interface of chemistry, material science, device physics, and engineering, and that too targeting on 3 different sectors. One is the indoor photovoltaics, second one is on portable electronics, and third one is the building integrated photovoltaic and transportation integrated photovoltaic approach. So the question that I faced in the last maybe 5-6 years time is, who am I? Like, this was being asked to me, like in various platforms, even for the award right now that I received. The committee I asked me, like, you're a graduate in chemistry, your PhD is in chemistry, and now you are working on physics and you are working on engineering. Other than biology, almost like you are touching everything. So who am I? So the explanation here, something that I used to say, is that I'm not just a chemist or I'm not just a physicist. I want to consider myself as an interdisciplinary scientist. So my career has been a study in this inter or cross-disciplinary research areas. And that really helped me. That really helped me to look at things in a totally different way. And I strongly believe that many of these interdisciplinary areas will nucleate into new fields in the future. And that can actually result, or that can translate to various scientific discoveries that helps some or other way for the community to further progress. So one thing that I had undertaken here in my research group is realigning the basic research. So we segregated it into different sectors. Like, we have a team working, a chemistry team working on the dyes and the electrolytes. We have a material science team working on the photoanodes. We have a physics group who are working on the device engineering, and certain engineers who are involved in transforming the science into the technology, and also another physics group working in the characterization part. And these are some publications which are, at the end of the day, that is actually the backbone. So now I will be speaking on both science and technology, and don't think that we just do the technology. There are a lot of science, a very core science is involved in it, and that science is the backbone behind the translational research or the technology that will be showcased. So what I will do here is that I will not go deeper into the science part, but I will just touch a few examples in a way to show you that how the science that we do in the lab, how it is related to the technology. Means when we say that we are making molecules, means what is the whole point? Means why you make this molecule for? So just to give you a glimpse on the activity, I will just touch a few slides on it, and then I will show some technological developments, and we will finish it up there. So one of the thing that we are really proud of, or something that we had done in the last 4 or 5 years time in my group, is the development of the characterization tools. Means, as we know, the best example that I used to cite here is that when we are having a broken bone, what we do? We go to a doctor, we will do an X-ray or we will do a scanning. And then we will figure it out that, okay, there is some ligament fracture, or like there is a bone fracture or things like that. And that's how we figure it out for the human body. In the same way, when I speak about solar cells, I mentioned before in my where I showed the process that there are a lot of interfaces, solid, liquid, 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 solid, solid interfaces, and the electron goes all the way in and out. And how we track this electron is very critical in a way to understand this technology in the best possible manner, where you make a new discovery with a new molecule, or whether you develop a new material. The prime factor here is to understand how that performs in a completed device, how the electron moves in a completed device when you are replacing the conventional systems with this new discovered molecules or the materials. So there we developed a range of DC and AC characterization techniques, and I am really proud to say that currently this is this particular techniques that we employ here are one of the best in the country. Nowhere other than in NIIST you will be able to find this much things under one single umbrella. So we do a lot of perturbation techniques. Something are light perturbation, something are electrical perturbation. So what do you mean by perturbation is that you are actually taking your device and then you either change the light frequencies or you change the electrical impulse that you apply, and then you measure the response, and then there are a lot of programming by which like you develop all these things. So these are done also partnering with certain labs like the EPFL in Switzerland, Uppsala in Sweden, and Michigan State University in US. So coming to the first sector, I will mention the dye. The dye occupies the major role, and this is actually a very recent development from our group, where one of my collaborators here, their group made this particular dyes that you see here. So these are donor pi acceptor dyes, organic molecules. So this is a carbazole with a terthiophene and a cyanoacetic acid. So you have a donor unit, a pi spacer, and you have an acceptor. So this is how, if you want to have a molecule to act as a dye, I didn't go much deeper there, but there are certain criteria you need to meet. One thing is that it should absorb the light, then only it can be able to be used as a dye. Second thing is that there should be a charge separation, and then it should have a binding group like this carboxylic acid functionality which are here, so that it can get attached to the surface of the semiconductor. Then the energetics, the ground state and the excited state, need to be placed in such a way that the excited state should be placed above the conduction band of the semiconductor, and the ground state should be placed below the redox potential of your electrolyte. Then only your injection and regeneration will happen. So these two dyes were given by my collaborator. This was done, they made this molecule in 2014, and I took it in 2015. And right now in 2020, we have some very good results that we communicated. So this is actually what I told in the beginning. The real science happens with time. So you need to have your perseverance there. Like if you are fed up and if you leave it in between, you will be missing a whole lot of information there. So what we have shown here is that using this dye, we were able to make some small modules, and we are able to show that this is a temperature sensor which is getting completely self-powered without any battery in a room light condition, employing the dye sensitized solar cells which are made by the dyes which are made in our lab. So initially in 2015, when we started this research, our initial efficiency was around like 4 to 5% in the outdoor sun condition, and indoor light atmosphere, like our efficiency was 10 to 15%. Then we did a lot of optimization, like almost 2-3 years of optimization has been done, and finally what we are getting is around 10% in one sun condition efficiency and around 30% in the indoor light conversion efficiency. And this is actually a record number for the kind of architecture we are being taken up here, and for the electrolyte system that right now we are working on. So the detail, like this is actually another slide I want to show you. Like when you look at this graph, this slide, you will see a lot of crisscross lines or the dots moving around. So it's nothing else. This is actually the result of the characterization that I mentioned. So you make a new dye molecule. First thing is to optimize to understand the dye in a more detailed way from the chemistry side. What is the absorption? What is the energetics? What is the HOMO-LUMO level electron density distribution? Once you are done with it, then you take it into the device. Then you understand, you optimize various parameters, you get the best results out from it. Then you go into the deeper understanding where you do a lot of electrical measurements. You find out how the shift in conduction band is happening, how the recombination is happening. So here actually the first graph here is a capacitance measurement from the impedance. So this will give you a details on is there any shift in the conduction band. So then there is a lifetime measurement there. So how the lifetime is changing, how the collection efficiency is changing. So these are certain parameters that you derive from it, which gives you like the X-ray or the scanning, as I mentioned, that you do on a human body, the same way you are scanning the device and you get more details out from it. Then coming to the electrolyte, we are into development of new electrolyte systems. So this is a very recent breakthrough from our lab, where we are working on this unique copper-based electrolyte system. This is where, like the thing I mentioned, this particular solar cell at the end of the day is very close to the nature, because conventionally people use iodide electrolyte, but now we changed it with some blue copper metal complexes. So these blue copper proteins are there in the natural world. It is there in a way to shuttle the electrons in certain bacteria and plants and things like that. So we are taking it up in a totally different fashion, and then we are trying to build up the things out of it. Then another part is the photoanode, where we, based on the application, based on the end user requirements, for real application, you need to have a more scattering, and conventional scattering layers will not work there. So we devised a new engineering concept here, where instead of having larger nanoparticles, which are normally used as scattering layers, we have a fugitive inclusion of certain zinc oxide structures, which are removed from the semiconductor later stage, so that you are not compromising your transparency. At the same time, you are having some scattering advantage there. So in a nutshell, what we had done from the science part, how it contributed to the technology, is that in 2017, what you see here, this is a temperature sensor which is being powered with a small module that we made in the lab, which is around 10 centimeters squared, and you need around 10,000 lux in a way to power it. But with the kind of basic science research that is done in the chemistry, material science, device physics, engineering, all these kind of things put together, right now in 2020, we stand at a place where the same power we were able to deliver to this particular temperature sensor with a device which is only 0.6 centimeters squared, and it can power it even at a lower intensity of 700 lux. That means you are able to reduce your active area 25 times, and it will work at an intensity which is 15 times less. So that is actually the advantage of the real science. So with this confidence in the science, we moved into the product development. So this was actually a major breakthrough, particularly for me, for my team, and for the entire CSIR, where for the first time in the country, we moved to a totally new innovation on equipment development. Because as most of us know, one of the things that limits our country in technological development is the accessibility to the equipments, fabrication equipments. So the same thing is applicable here also in this technology. When we started the transformation or the translational research, taking the small area devices into the modules and panels. So what you see here is certain prototypes that we developed, which are integrated with certain applications to show the proof of concept. And this was all made with the hand. But then we realized that in a way to take the small cells into bigger panels, you can't just do it with the hand. You need the right equipments. And conventionally, what people all have done is that they import the equipments and they work on the imported equipments. But we face a lot of issues, because once you import the equipments, one thing is the price. You are giving a huge price there. Second thing, if something happens to the equipment, you need to take the engineer, or you need to take the advice from maybe US or Canada or Australia, and that actually takes time. So your valuable time is being lost there. So we went into a very unique project, and this was actually sanctioned from Department of Science and Technology in 2017, where for the first time in the country, we went into the indigenization of semi-automatic fabrication equipments for dye-sensitized solar cell. By doing this exercise, partnering with the industry, we were able to realize this equipment manufacturing at a cost which is 60 to 70% less. So this is much more cost effective than what you do. And this is capable of producing panels from 5 centimeter all the way up to 20 centimeter. And the application that right now, like what we are mainly focused is on the indoor light harvesting. And this was aligning with the government initiatives. Since being a government organization, we have to align with it. It's like Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make for the World, and things like that. So the project actually started in June 2017, and it just got completed a few months back in May 2020. And even just 6 months before the final completion, we were able to license this technology for the mass production to the industry that was partnering with us, and that is actually going in a very nice way. So I will just quickly show you the various process that is there in this fabrication. So it all starts with the screen printing of this electrode. So you cut the glass pieces and then you screen print with your semiconductor layer using the screen printers. And then there is a 5-headed robotic system, as you see here. So that does 5 processes in one go. One is the silver dispensing, UV epoxy dispensing, pick and place system is there, electrolyte filling is there, UV curing is there. So once you are done with your photoanode, here what you see is the counter electrode. So you drill the holes, you put the catalyst, and then you put the pick and place. So you put the cathode on the top of your photoanode here. And so once that is done, then the entire system will move into a chamber where you shine the UV light, and the UV light will cure your electrodes together. So then you are having your final panel there. And then the final step where you fill the electrolyte. So once the electrolyte is filled, and then you are having your the final module or the panel, and based on whatever be the size requirement, we can make all the way from the 5 centimeter all the way up to the 30 centimeter. So this attracted a lot of eyes into this particular area, where it was showcased in the newspapers and also in CSIR, DST websites and all. And the technology has been licensed in last year. And we are partnering with this industry, and we focus on 3 different sectors. One is the academic sector, and second one is the government institution, and also the corporate sector, in a way to transform the science, because these are niche areas. So one of the issues that we face, like as I mentioned, is that to find the real market. So that is there for all the new technologies. So here, these are certain prototypes that are developed in our lab. So here you can see with the indoor light, just with the indoor light, it is able to power certain things. And here on the right, what you see here is a temperature sensor and a clock. And this is a lux meter. So you see around less than 500 lux means like that's very bare light. So bare minimum light is there, and that minimum light is enough in a way to power these kind of applications. So that is a very critical part there. And as I mentioned, like even though there are a lot of like very interesting applications that are there, since these are new areas, industries will not directly come into the sector. So you need to really show them certain applications and some real technologies. In that regard, we made some prototypes. So one thing is actually, you may be familiar with the dispensers, the perfume dispensers. Conventionally, we use batteries in a way to power this perfume dispenser. So we made a self-powered perfume dispenser, integrating these solar cells into it, so which is self-powered. Another thing that we are currently working on is this kind of electronic shelf labels. You know, in bigger supermarket, instead of having the price labels, you can have electronic price labels like this. And if you can make it completely self-powered with these kind of indoor light harvesting photovoltaic devices, that will be very exciting. So that is another sector. Second thing is the IoT based environmental sensors, where you can have temperature, humidity, LPG, smoke, any kind of sensing that can be done, which is self-powered also, like battery free. So I will quickly stop it in another few minutes time. So this is the way in which we are currently working on in our laboratory, and what is the way forward. So as our respected president has previously mentioned, like small dream is a big crime, and big dreams transformed into thoughts, and thoughts results in action. So we strongly believe in that. Whatever Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam sir has mentioned, we don't ever dream small. Like the entire team, we dream for really big things. So that is what I am going to show now, like where we are trying to look into. We focus on 3 different sectors. So one sector is the building. So when normal people, when they look at the building, they see the building, but we see the building in a different way. We see every surface as an opportunity, because in the indoor light harvesting sector, we are looking to make certain furnitures and things where you can incorporate these kind of solar panels there. That means like it can be your table, it can be some other artifacts or artifacts which are there, where you can integrate these kind of beautiful colored panels, and which can actually generate the power in a way to have a sustainable living. You can also have it integrated to the windows. Another sector is the transportation sector. So this is actually something that from last many years we are partnering, or we are having discussion with our Cochin Metro and all, where we want to have these kind of integrated solar panels on the top of the metro trains, and also this aesthetically beautiful panels can be placed inside the cabins. And another part is indirect application, where like noise barriers and things like that, where you can have it. So one application right now we are focusing is, you may be aware, like now we are going to have this high-speed train from Thiruvananthapuram to Kasaragod. And this passes through highly populated areas, and their initial plan was to actually have the opaque rubber or metal based noise barriers, but that will actually limit the visibility of the people and you feel like so much congested. So we are looking for some kind of an installations where we can have these kind of transparent panels, which are see-through panels, where you are not that much claustrophobic there. Additionally, like you are getting the advantage of generating the power. Another thing is this urban farming. So this is some unique examples where I live in a flat complex in the middle of the city, and it is having 14 floors, and I live on the 7th floor. I can't ever imagine to have a cultivation or a farming in my balcony. But this is actually something that triggered from there. So we are planning to have multiple technologies incorporated into a single thing, where you have these kind of glass chambers or the cabins which are placed maybe on the rooftop or on the balconies, and where you have this agro related agroponics and other LED technologies and things which are also incorporated, where these glasses are not normal glasses. These are energy glasses or the power producing glasses, and in daytime you will get the light from the sun and the plants will grow, and in the night time the energy that is produced and that is stored from the solar cells can be used for lighting certain LEDs at specific wavelengths, so that you can have more produce at shorter time interval. So I will be finishing the talk here. So what we aim for, maybe the end of a presentation, but we aim for the beginning of a truly unprecedented breakthrough in the energy sector, where we see all the surfaces as an opportunity, as I mentioned, where in a normal living space, whether it can be a wall, it can be a furniture, it can be your rooftop, it can be your flooring, everything, we see how we can convert that into power producing spaces. So we want to get the solar more close to the people, but not as conventional solar, to make it more beautiful and pleasing and incorporate it into your everyday activity, so that at the end of the day you will not realize that you are coming across a solar cell or a solar technology. That means your gadgets, your electronic devices, so whatever you see around, there will be some solar cell which are attached to it, but it's hard to identify or it's hard to judge that a solar cell is there. So that is a very unique kind of expertise or a technology that we are right now working on. So I will stop here. And acknowledging the main thing is actually my team here. So I have a very smart team of students here at working at various expertise, having various expertise. Some are chemists, some are physicists, some are material scientists, some are engineers. So this team is very unique, and the funding agencies and my lab that is supporting with all these activities. So my presentation I am stopping here, but I want to just go through a few more slides for my younger colleagues there in St. George. So one thing is that we all know, we are passing through this hard times, the pandemic times, and don't get upset with all these things. See this as an opportunity, because these kind of pandemics, once it not only pandemic, any kind of situation you come across, you can actually move out from your normal way, and you can actually find new areas where you can really explore and find new ways out. So who will solve the problems of the future? So there we need graduates like you people who are having creative and very bright ideas. And there I want to show you one example here. I don't know how many of you are aware about this. There is a 4-quadrant thing called Bohr, Pasteur, Edison quadrants. So for those who are not aware of it, so this means that, you all know about Niels Bohr. So he won the Nobel Prize in physics in 1922. So the atom model and the energy things and all the things came from Bohr. The basic fundamental knowledge or the basic science is what Bohr is considered for. And when you look at he's a Danish physicist, and Edison is an American guy, and he's best known for a lot of discoveries. He's not just a scientist, he's known as an entrepreneur and a businessman. So the light bulb and lot of discoveries, more than 1,000 discoveries he has done, but more aligned into the business. And another person here is this Pasteur. So the importance of Pasteur is that, you know, like this vaccinations and those kind of things were invented by Pasteur, and is a biochemist. And at the end of the day, the influence that he had put up was that how his discoveries helped the humankind in a way to have a better survival. So Bohr worked a lot on the science part, Edison worked on the business or the technology part. And what Pasteur had done is that he had taken the science, he filled the gap or the valley of depth between the science and the business, and come up with solutions involving science which can have an impact to the life of the common man, which actually helped people from getting died by having the vaccinations and things like that. So that is what Pasteur. So as students, what you should now realign your attitude in a way that you can place yourself in the Pasteur quadrant. So that is actually the need of the time now. Not only just the basic science or not only just the technology or the business. If you can place yourself with a mix of these two into the Pasteur quadrant, and that actually will make a big difference. And how you can do that? How you can get yourself into this Pasteur quadrant? So there you need to actually come out from your conventional way of approach. Means if I am studying chemistry, don't just study chemistry. You should look around and you should have a multidisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary research. And this will help you. This will help you in a way to gain more knowledge, at the same time in a way to convert yourself from the Bohr and the Pasteur quadrant, from the Bohr and the Edison quadrant, all the way to the Pasteur quadrant. And there actually I want to also put one more example here. I don't know whether you are familiar with this particular thing called Choluteca Bridge. So Choluteca Bridge actually, it's a small story. I will just brief it up. So this is in North America, in Honduras. This bridge was, this Honduras was so much prone to a lot of hurricanes and all. So in 1998, the government there, they made a bridge called this particular Choluteca Bridge across this Choluteca River. And this was done by a Japanese engineering team, almost half a kilometer long bridge. And the confirmation that this company was given that whatever hurricane or anything that happened, the bridge will stay standstill. And the same year, the bridge was commissioned in 1998. A big hurricane came, and the entire approach roads and everything was washed away. And the most surprising thing is that even the river, Choluteca River, was actually it was shifted. The path was shifted into a different way. So right now, even after 20 years, the particular bridge is standing still there. So the bridge is an excellent architectural engineering beauty, which didn't get destroyed with anything. But what we need to take home here, the message is that even though the bridge is there, there is no approach road, and even the river is not there. The river actually moved to the place. So even if you are having an engineering marvel, it is not serving to any purpose. So what you need to do is that it's not just building the thing. It's not just building to adapt rather than building to last. So that is actually more important. So in a way, tomorrow's students, what they need to do, from my understanding, or like it's my own personal thing, that tomorrow's students must be able to practice a broad range of interdisciplinary domain inputs and related science and engineering concepts while maintaining focus and willingness to accept and change, thus advancing in scientific enterprise. You don't want to be the Choluteca Bridge. You can be like very good or very smart at what you are at, like maybe the science, the physics, chemistry, whatever you are at. But the need of the day, if such a pandemic situation comes, then the need may be to introduce that into a certain different concept, or like to come up with new ideas or technologies where you need to actually depend on some other disciplines also. So those kind of, you should be open to all the sciences. At the same time, you should be smart at all the things what you are doing. So I will stop here. And once again, I thank you, the Department of Chemistry at St. George College, Ervitra, and particularly Tessimis, for all the invitation and the effort that is being placed in a way to give me a platform here to communicate with all of you. The most important part, the thing that I want to tell you all, to my younger generation, this is to you people, because I was just like one of you. I was there in St. George College from 2003 to 2006, and there was nothing big in me. It is just like me, the same as like what you people are there. But something that made me different is like I had a very strict aim was there. Like I wanted from the day one, what I want at the end of my third year degree is very clear to me. And then the hard work that is put into it and the teamwork was there. And ultimately that actually paid the way off. So as youngsters, what I want to tell you all is that you put up your aim. You have a definite aim in your, list it out, the aim in your mind. And second thing is to put the extreme effort, the hard work, never ever give up. Put your hard work and nothing can compromise your hard work. And you don't need to be studying in an IIT or ISER or IASC in a way to lead science or come up with something different. You can be in St.George College, Arvitra, and you can make big discoveries or big inventions in future once you are completely into it. So I will stop my presentation here, and I'm more than happy to take up any questions. Even though if the time is limited, we can stop it up here, and you can actually send email to me at any point of time. I will respond to the email and questions at the later stage.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your deep knowledge about renewable nanoscale light harvesters. The session was full of enthusiasm and valuable knowledge. We will go ahead and take some time for questions now. Now the platform is open for Q&A session. If you have any queries, please ask. You can unmute your audio and ask questions now.
Yeah, I think they can send me mail also at any time.
Sir, we have a few questions.
Yeah, please.
After indigenization, are these nanoscale devices cost effective so that it is affordable to women? What is its expected lab to market journey? What is the expected cost?
Yeah, actually, as I mentioned, like this particular technology, from science to technology, we only did it in the last 3 to 4 years time. So now we are into this cost calculations and things like that. But it is surely cost effective because as I mentioned, it uses very cheap materials like organic molecules, the semiconductor, titanium dioxide and all like that you normally see in toothpaste and all. And the process that involves it is not at all it is like printing process and all. So it is very cost effective. So what we aim for is a price which is placed at almost like 1/10 of the price of what is available right now. But currently I can't comment on it because still more research and still more things need to be done.
Thank you, sir. We have another question. We are curious to know the challenges you face during this technology transfer. How fast is this lab to market journey is occurring?
Yeah, I like that question a lot because today the slides that I presented is only the success story. But like last week also I had another 2-3 presentations where the same thing I mentioned. If I was asked to present the failures that I met in the last 5 years time, I can spend a week presenting it because we met failures more. The success is only like I should say 1 to 2%. The rest are all failures because we work on certain things. That's what like you see. It's very fancy when you see a colorful solar cell that produces current when you place it anywhere. It looks very interesting, very fancy. But to realize it's challenging. There are a lot of problems that comes up. One thing is to get the right funds because being a science or a scientist, you need the funds to work on these kind of problems. So that means you need to convince the government, that you need to convince the funding agencies. So that is the first step. Once you are done with it, then you need to have the right team of faculties, the right team of students who work on these kind of problems. And then many issues comes up. And we faced a lot of problems. Some are engineering problems, some are chemistry problems, some are physics problems. But we are not telling that we are 100% out from all the problems. But if that is there, then there is no fun in doing the research. So still every day we face the issue. So I mentioned something on this copper electrolyte based solar cells. So this is a very recent development. One of my students worked almost 3 years on it, starting from 2016. And for 3 years, he was not able to make a working device. It's not the normal solar cell is there, but once you change one component, it's not working. It's not coming up. But finally, one day he come up with the solution, and like he fixed it out. Like it's all of a sudden it started to give the current and voltage, and it took 3 years. So that kind of things are there. So it all depends on the students also. Anyway, like I'm blessed to have like really hardworking and motivated students with me in my team, and they are the channel behind all the developments that is there happening with us.
Yes, sir. Much work is put on in your journey. All the best for your journey. I think there are not any more questions. Thank you, sir. You're an inspiration for all of us.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
As we come to the close of our webinar, I invite Professor Shirley Matthew, Head of the Department, to propose the vote of thanks. Miss, please.
Respected Manager, Reverend Dr. Augustine Palakapparambil, our Principal, Dr. Reggie Varghese Mekadan sir, Course Coordinator and Bursar of the College, Reverend Father George Puligalayil, today's resource person, Dr. Suraj Soman, participants from various institutions, my dear colleagues, my dear students, a very good afternoon to all. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. First of all, I would like to propose my sincere and heartfelt thanks to our beloved manager, Reverend Dr. Augustine Palakapparambil, who spent his vital time from his busiest schedule to grace this occasion. Thank you, Father. Next, I would like to express my gratitude to our principal, Dr. Reggie Varghese Mekadan, for his unflinching support and encouragement at every point of time in the organization of this seminar. Thank you, sir. I would like to thank Reverend Father George Puligalayil for the support and cooperation he has rendered to Department of Chemistry for organizing this seminar. Thank you, Father, for your presence and words of felicitation. On behalf of the Department of Chemistry, I would like to thank our distinguished speaker, Dr. Suraj Soman, for the excellent presentation on nanoscale light harvesters, making this webinar an interesting and meaningful one. We are also thankful for motivating the students of our college during this pandemic situation. I also take this opportunity to congratulate Dr. Suraj for winning the 2020 CSIR Young Scientist Award and also the Kerala State Youth Icon Award in Science. It's a proud feeling as teachers for us to congratulate you on behalf of the entire institution. I can definitely say that it's a result of your impeccable hard work and dedication towards the subject. Next, I thank all the participants who have turned up in such great numbers, not only from our institution, but also from various other institutions. I have been very fortunate enough to be backed up by a team of very motivated and dedicated colleagues who are very result-oriented. Thank you all. And let me conclude by thanking all those who have been directly or indirectly involved in the conduct of this webinar. Thank you all and have a nice day.
The link for feedback form is open now. Please fill the feedback form. On behalf of Dr. Suraj Soman as well as the Postgraduate Department of Chemistry, thank you all for joining us. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.